So for today's video, we will be looking at how to place more floors and how to use the ground checking in Unity, and also see the player not jump multiple times in one. So first, in order to duplicate floors, you simply press Ctrl D to duplicate, and then you can move by pressing the W key and to move around wherever you want it to be. You can also adjust its scale by pressing R and rotate how you want by pressing E. So I have made multiple floors for the player to travel to. As you can see, I have also grouped them in one group in order for it to be more clean or pleasing to the eye when looking at the different assets you have in the hierarchy. So how to do that? You simply create empty and rename it however much you want. For mine, I made mine into level 1 floors. So after that, you can put the floor here by simply dragging it here, and then that's where I started duplicating. As for the ground check, what we did is press the floor and then press the arrow here so that it will go to the prefab. Here, top right, as you can see, there is a layer drop down where you can see that's ground. To edit this, you simply press add layer and then put in user layer 6 ground. After that, you assign the layer to the floor to ground. So now all the prefabs with the floor have all the layer ground since it was edited in the prefab. So next, how do we put this to use? In our scripts, open the player movement script. Here, first, I made a serialized field, transform ground check. This will check if the player has a ground check is touching the ground via the ground check transform. So how does this happen? In the player, I have made an empty object called ground check. So again, you can do this by right clicking and create empty. So the ground check, as you can see, is directly under the player capsule. For this to happen, I made a position of Y to -1, so it will be directly below the capsule. The ground check is the object that checks whether the capsule is touching the floor or not. Next is layer mask ground again. Another serialized field again, for layer mask ground. So layer mask checks whether the player is on the layer ground. As mentioned earlier, in the floor prefab, we have selected the layer ground, and layer mask checks that whenever the player is standing on ground. So we have made a boolean outside of the void start and the void update, and we have called it is grounded. So here we have put return physics.check sphere. Why sphere? It is because a capsule is rounded, so we have selected a sphere for that. Next, we will put the position of the ground check, which is the empty object. Here, the position of the ground check. We have put specifically ground check dot position because it is always gonna be moving whenever the player moves. Next is 0.1 f, which is the float radius. And finally, ground, which is gonna be where you put the layer mask, or the layer for which you have which layer to check for when the player is moving. So now, for our player, we are able to have the serialized field for ground check and ground. For this to pop up, for what to put here in ground check, you simply drag this game object, put it here, and for the ground layer mask, you simply have to select ground. There. So now, next is previously you were able to jump in the air while even being able to do it multiple times. So we have made an adjustment to the code for the jump so that the player can only jump while they are standing on the ground. Putting the end here means that if the player inputs the jump button and is also being checked in the is grounded boolean, whether they are standing on the ground or not, is being checked, and that's when they are only allowed to jump. So let us try to do this. Oh. As if the is grounded isn't there. Let's see what happens. So if you press space multiple times, as you can see, it will still be able to jump continuously. But if we remove the comment for making it check that it's grounded, you will see that if I press space multiple times, it is not going to work. And it's always checking if the player is in the ground layer. So now you can move as proceeded with no multiple jumps being produced. There. Okay. So what have we learned? It is one, it is good to put all the same prefabs in one group as to make it easier for you to look for when you are looking for it later. Next, clicking this arrow makes you edit the whole prefab. Adding a layer and making it ground is an essential thing in making sure to ground check, as it is the platform that you want the player to stand on. Next, we have made a boolean for the is grounded to check whether the player is always on the ground or not. We have also learned that transform and layer mask. And finally, if putting these two symbols together means that they have to check whether the player has done the input for jump and while the player is also at the ground layer. Okay, so that is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.